The Baltimore Police Department is notorious for scandals and allegations of police corruption. The cops who operate there have often been implicated in high-profile stories that involve everything from stealing drugs to police brutality to racketeering to witness tampering. Some of the allegations made against police units out in Baltimore sound more like gang operations. I'm mentioning all this because the Baltimore Police Department is deeply entwined with the stories of two city rappers whose lives were shaped by the cycle of violence and corruption from the streets. One of those artists is, of course, Lor Scoota, who came out of the city's west side. For those who don't know, Scoota damn near created the city's unofficial anthem when he dropped Bird Flu in 2014. Not only did Bird Flu become the soundtrack to the streets, but it had its own dance to go along with it. The track became so well known in the city that there was even a family-friendly remix that swapped out all of Scoota's references to selling dope with shoutouts to the Orioles and the Ravens. Other rappers started taking notice of Lor Scoota and his grind, giving him flowers on social media and arranging in-person meetings with him. From the looks of everything, Scoota was destined to take it to the next level. At the same time all this was happening, Lor Scoota's street ties were making life in the city tougher than it needed to be. One of Scoota's closest friends growing up was a dude named Fred Catchings, who was super locked into the street life in Baltimore. While Fred was locked up for a majority of Scoota's come up, they still kept a tight relationship. Scoota even shouted him out on one of his later mixtapes, Still in the Trenches 3. Fred was constantly involved in beef with rival crews throughout the city, something that would come back to haunt him and may have cut Lor Scoota's life and career tragically short. One of the things that really set Lor Scoota apart from everyone else in the game is that he was serious about giving back and encouraged peace on the streets. He did everything he could to support the community by sponsoring charity events and standing on his authenticity. Everything he did went back to repping Baltimore and speaking for his community, which is why he got so much love from the city. But unfortunately, all that changed on June 25th, 2016. Lor Scoota just pulled up on an anti-violence event at Morgan State University and played a charity basketball game that emphasized unity and peace in the streets. Scoota finished the game and jumped into his Honda Accord with his girl in the passenger seat. He was only a 3-minute drive away from the school when another car followed Scoota and started blasting. Scoota was shot multiple times and his car crashed into a corner store. By the time the cops arrived on the scene, Lor Scoota was already dead. He was only 23 years old. The trauma of his murder sent shockwaves throughout West Baltimore. A visual intended to honor Lor Scoota's memory was disrupted when the Baltimore Police Department showed up in full force, suited up in riot gear and blocking off the streets. Even though the visual was supposed to send a message of peace, with gang leaders around the city coming together to form a truce, the cops created a bunch of tension by the way they started antagonizing mourners. As all this was happening, there was a lot of speculation about who went after Lor Scoota. It turns out the reason investigators think Lor Scoota got caught up that day is because one of his closest friends, Fred Catchings, just shot someone hours before. Video surveillance from earlier that afternoon showed Fred jumping out of an SUV and shooting another man named Devontae Robinson multiple times. Devontae ended up surviving the shooting, but his friends allegedly wanted revenge for what Fred did. Investigators believe that since Devontae's friends couldn't get to Fred, they ran up on Scoota as a way to draw Fred out and retaliate against him. Fred was arrested just 2 weeks later for Devontae Robinson's shooting and was eventually sentenced to 32 years in prison after entering a plea that included Fred admitting to non-fatal shootings of 3 other people. Meanwhile, an informant accused Cortez Mitchell, one of Devontae's closest friends, of being the triggerman behind Lor Scoota's murder. Just months later though, Cortez was shot to death while riding around with Devontae. The cops have since closed Scoota's case, even though no further arrests have been made. A lot of people feel that closing the case without identifying Scoota's murderer fits right into BPD's bad reputation. The Baltimore Police Department's corruption is also alleged to be tied in with derailing another rapper's promising career. Around the time Scoota was on the come up, another artist named Young Moose was steadily building up a name for himself for being one of the city's grittiest, rawest talents. While Lor Scoota came from Baltimore's west side, Moose repped the east and quickly solidified himself as a local celebrity and hometown hero. Young Moose, though, was a major target for the cops and was especially hated by a notoriously corrupt detective named Daniel Herschel. Herschel had a reputation for being one of the most violent, out-of-control cops in the city. He was eventually convicted of charges of racketeering, conspiracy, and robbery after 4 former police colleagues testified against him. But back when Moose was only 19 years old, Herschel arrested him for drug possession and allegedly beat him up while stealing his money. Young Moose responded by recording and releasing a song called The Police, where he went directly at Baltimore Police Department and Detective Herschel. This pissed Herschel off to the point where he made it his priority to destroy the life of Young Moose and his family. According to Young Moose's father, Herschel started raiding Moose's family home and their store, cuffing Moose's mom, father, brother, and stealing thousands of dollars from a safe. Herschel was determined to punish young Moose for speaking out against him, but it seems this only made Moose go harder. Moose kept dropping music and kept name-checking Detective Herschel in his songs, telling the world his story and that he believed Herschel was a racist obsessed with destroying his life and career. While young Moose was determined to speak out about what was happening to him and his family, it also painted a bigger target on his back to the point that he was constantly harassed by the BPD. Moose was constantly getting hit with jail time and house arrest orders, and the cops would submit his music videos and lyrics as evidence to obtain warrants. Eventually, young Moose sued Detective Herschel and the BPD, claiming their abuse was so pervasive and out of control that they sidetracked and dismantled his music career and lost him at least $500,000 in potential revenue. Moose settled that case against Herschel and 9 other BPD officers last year for about 300 racks, but from the looks of it, the industry tastemakers and the journalists who once paid attention to young Moose's career have moved on. The lore is that Moose could have been a huge star if it wasn't for the cops' apparent vendetta against him and his family. At the end of the day, both Lor Scoota and young Moose have stories that symbolize how tragic happens when both the streets and BPD seem out to get you.